The first thing the Alien Council asked me was how many predators I had personally strangled. I laughed. A nervous, automatic sound. The kind you make when someone asks if you've ever murdered something with your bare hands and you assume it's a joke. It was not a joke. They leaned forward in unison, translucent crests flaring with interest, waiting for a number. A respectable one. A heroic one. Something that didn't involve the phrase 0 unless spiders count, and even then I needed a shoe. None, I said carefully. Personally. The council erupted into approving clicks and whistles. Ah, the eldest said, antennae curling. Modesty. A universal trait among apex warriors. That was when I realized I was completely, catastrophically screwed. I hadn't volunteered for this assignment. Nobody volunteers to become the last hope of an alien species reproduction. Earth Command had framed it as a low-risk diplomatic support role. Low risk, they said. Cultural exchange. Observational duties. Donor was just a technical term. Nothing dramatic. They did not mention the worshipful stares. Or the ceremonial banners. Or the fact that my arrival had been announced with drums. Apparently, this colony's entire understanding of humanity came from a single piece of archived media recovered from a long-dead probe. A movie. An Earth action movie. Dubbed. Badly. In their language, with half the nuance of a brick. From what I gathered through whispered translations and reverent gestures, the film depicted a human male who fought wild beasts daily, screamed challenges at the sky, and resolved most conflicts by grabbing things and throwing them very hard. I was pretty sure it starred a professional wrestler from the late 21st century. To them, it was a documentary. That was how I became the assigned human donor, also known as the warrior who comes from a death world, also known as please don't let him notice I'm shaking. They escorted me through the colony like I was a loaded weapon. Wide corridors cleared ahead of us. Civilians pressed themselves against walls, peeking out with awe. A child waved. I waved back. The escort gasped. Friendly dominance display, one of them whispered. I tripped on nothing. They wrote it down. Then they brought me to her. She stood alone in a sunlit chamber grown from pale living stone, tall and elegant in a way that made my brain forget its current panic schedule. Her skin shifted subtly with emotion, soft hues instead of sharp colors. Her eyes, too many reflections, not enough judgment, studied me with calm curiosity rather than reverence. This was the soul breeder. The last one. The reason I was here. Everyone else bowed. Deeply. I tried not to. Compromised with an awkward half-nod that looked like a neck spasm. She tilted her head, intrigued. So, she said, voice melodic and precise, you are the human. I wanted to say no, I'm a clerical error. Instead, I said, that's what I'm told. Her mouth, if it could be called that, curved slightly. A smile, maybe? Or an anatomical threat? Hard to tell yet. You are smaller than expected, she added, not unkindly. Budget cuts, I said before my brain could stop me. The translators hesitated. Then she laughed. A soft, startled sound, like she hadn't meant to but enjoyed it anyway. Something loosened in my chest. She circled me slowly, thoughtful, not predatory. The archives show humans wrestle predators for sustenance. I wrestle with jars, I said. Sometimes I lose. That earned another head tilt. She was sharp. I could tell. Already comparing me to the myth and finding discrepancies. Before that could become a problem, a sudden skittering noise echoed through the chamber. Something small darted across the floor. 6 legs. Big eyes. Fluffy in a way that set off every instinct I had ever developed around the word nope. I yelped. Loudly. Backed up. Hit a decorative pillar. The entire room froze. The creature paused, sniffed, then skittered away, startled by the noise I was apparently still making. Silence followed. I became acutely aware of several dozen aliens staring at me with awestruck intensity. That, the eldest breathed, was a juvenile razorhound. My heart attempted to escape my ribcage. It was adorable. A fearless intimidation shriek. Another said, reverent. Classic human tactic. They bowed again. I closed my eyes. She was watching me differently now. Not worshipful. Curious. Amused. Like she'd just seen behind the curtain and found something unexpected rather than disappointing. Are you afraid often? She asked quietly. Yes, I said immediately. Constantly. Right now. Of everything. Her smile returned, gentler this time. Fascinating. They ushered me away before I could ruin it further, praises echoing behind me. The warrior. The champion. The donor who scared off predators with his voice alone. As the doors sealed, an aide leaned close and whispered, thrilled, "Tomorrow you will demonstrate your combat rituals for the colony." I stared straight ahead, soul leaving my body. I had no idea what a human combat ritual was. And whatever they thought it was, I definitely did not do it on purpose. I found the movie that ruined my life about 3 hours after the council informed me I'd be demonstrating human combat rituals. It took some negotiating. Apparently the archive was considered sacred cultural material, which meant I had to promise not to reinterpret its truths. I agreed immediately, because at that point I would have promised them my left kidney if it bought me 5 minutes of preparation time. They projected it onto the curved wall of my quarters. Within the first 30 seconds, I understood everything. A heavily muscled human stood knee-deep in some kind of swamp, covered in what I desperately hoped was fake blood, screaming at a reptilian monster twice his size before suplexing it into the mud. I muted it. Unmuted it. Muted it again. "Oh no," I whispered. The translation subtitles didn't help. They were enthusiastic. Human males prove mating worthiness through trial by predator. "No, we absolutely do not," I told the empty room. The door chimed softly behind me. I jumped hard enough to nearly reenact the suplex myself. She stepped inside, posture relaxed, eyes bright with interest. No entourage this time. No council. Just her. "I was told you were studying your ancestral combat forms," she said. "Trying to figure out where the lies started," I admitted. She watched a few seconds of the movie. On screen, the hero snapped a tree trunk over his knee. Her crest shifted colors, impressed. "So this is typical? Only if you live inside a gym," I said. She made a thoughtful sound and sat across from me, folding her long limbs with careful grace. Up close, she seemed less like a symbol and more like a person who was probably very tired of being treated as a replaceable equipment. "I offered to assist you," she said. "Preparation increases survival probability." "You think I'm going to need survival probability?" Her look was polite. That felt like a yes. We started with what she called intimidation vocalization. "You produced one when confronting the Razor Hound," she said. "That was panic. Please replicate it." "I would rather not. For science." I sighed and attempted a controlled version. It came out somewhere between a cough and a squeak. She considered this seriously, then tried it herself. The result was a surprisingly adorable chirp. I blinked. "If the predators don't run, they might adopt you." She seemed pleased with that. Next came physical demonstrations. I picked up a training rod and snapped it across my knee. It hurt. A lot. I did not let that show until I turned around, at which point I mouthed silent agony and shook my leg. Behind me, she addressed the hovering recorder drone. "Observe the casual application of force," she narrated. Casual. Sure. We moved outside to a practice terrace where a few distant observers pretended not to stare. "Perhaps a display of throwing strength," she suggested. I tossed a small stone. It went farther than expected thanks to lower gravity. Several onlookers gasped. One bowed. I was beginning to understand how cult leaders happen by accident. She stepped closer while the crowd dispersed, her voice lowering. "You are not what they expected." There was no accusation in it. "Disappointed?" I asked. Relieved. That surprised me enough to meet her gaze. They expect perfection from myths, she continued. Myths do not survive long in reality. Something eased between us then, a shared awareness of the absurd pressure pressing down from all sides. She gestured toward my hands. They are trembling. So is everything else, I said. I once pulled a muscle opening a stubborn food container. Her eyes brightened again, that almost smile. You admit weakness easily. On Earth we call that honesty. It saves time. She grew quiet at that, studying me with an intensity that should have been uncomfortable but wasn't. I have never been permitted weakness, she said finally. The colony sees me as its future, not its present. For the first time since arriving, I forgot to be scared. That sounds lonely. It is efficient. That's not the same thing. A distant alarm suddenly pulsed through the colony, low, rhythmic, urgent. Every alien within sight went rigid. She turned toward the horizon. Predator sighting. My stomach attempted to file a resignation letter. Figures gathered below, looking up at me with unmistakable expectation. Perhaps, she said gently, your sonic intimidation? I made a noise that might have been a laugh if you tilted your head and believed in miracles. We descended to the outer corridor just as a shadow passed over the barrier field. Something large moved beyond it. My survival instincts began packing bags. The gate sensors triggered with a sharp metallic shriek as they cycled power. The creature outside jolted, startled by the sound, then bolted back into the brush. The colony erupted into relieved chatter. She glanced at the readings, then at me. You anticipated its aversion to sharp resonance? I absolutely did not. The recorder drone zipped closer. Documenting adaptive acoustic warfare. It chimed. Of course it was. She watched me a moment longer, and this time the amusement in her expression was unmistakable. You are afraid, she said softly. Yet you remain. Running would be faster, I admitted. But it felt rude. A quiet laugh escaped her, warmer now, less surprised. You are not what they think, she said. I braced myself. But you may be exactly what we need. I wasn't sure whether that was comforting or terrifying. Probably both. As we stood there, the colony slowly relaxing around us, I realized something else that unsettled me far more than any predator. For the first time since being assigned here, I was glad she was the one standing beside me. The announcement came at dawn, which I was learning was when civilizations like to make their worst decisions. A harmonic tone rolled through the colony, followed by the Council's amplified declaration. The trial of the champion will commence at mid-cycle. All citizens are invited to witness the human demonstration of courage. I sat upright in my sleep cradle and briefly considered pretending I had died overnight. There were several problems with this plan, the biggest being that they would probably expect me to fight my way back to life. A soft chime sounded at the door. Go away, I said into my pillow. It is me, she replied. I opened the door immediately. She stepped inside, composed as ever, though there was a tension in the set of her shoulders I hadn't seen before. You heard the announcement, she said. I'm thinking of faking a rare human condition. Sudden bonelessness. You will attend. It wasn't a command. It was certainty. I am not a champion, I said. I once apologized to a chair after bumping into it. Her eyes warmed faintly. You misunderstand the purpose of the trial. It is not only tradition, it is reassurance. They are afraid. Belief stabilizes them. So we lie to them? She studied me for a long moment before answering. No. But perhaps we allow them time to understand the truth. I exhaled slowly. And what truth is that? That courage and fear are not opposites. The arena was enormous, grown from the same pale living stone as the rest of the colony but shaped into rising terraces packed with citizens. Thousands of luminous eyes tracked my entrance. There is nothing quite like the experience of disappointing an entire species before lunch. I tried to walk the way the movie hero had walked, shoulders back, deliberate steps, face arranged into what I hoped was grim determination and not severe indigestion. She moved beside me, close enough that our arms brushed once. "Breathe," she murmured. "I am breathing. You are hyperventilating." There. At the arena's center lay an open stretch of terrain dotted with metallic pillars and low barriers. Demonstration equipment, I assumed. Something I could interact with that would not eat me. The eldest counselor lifted his limbs for silence. "Today we witness the human way," he proclaimed. "Fearless. Dominant. Unbreakable." My left eye twitched. A distant gate groaned open. At first, nothing happened. Then the ground vibrated. Not metaphorically. Actually vibrated. A creature emerged from the far tunnel, easily 3 times my height at the shoulder, plated in dull armor, jaws flexing with slow mechanical patience. Its gaze swept the arena with unsettling intelligence. "That," I whispered, "is not a puppy." "It is not," she agreed calmly. "You told me this was symbolic. It was meant to be contained." The creature slammed into one of the barrier posts. The post snapped. The crowd gasped as one organism. My brain helpfully supplied exactly one instruction: run. I ran. Not heroically. Not strategically. Just immediate, undignified sprinting accompanied by a noise I will deny making for the rest of my natural life. Behind me, the creature roared, a deep, concussive sound that shoved all rational thoughts straight out of my skull. I vaulted a low rail, caught my foot, and went sprawling into the dust. So this is how the legend ends, I thought. Not with glory. With a faceplant. The arena fell into stunned silence. The fearless human had tripped. I scrambled backward, hands shaking so hard the world blurred. Every instinct screamed at me to curl up and become uninteresting. Then I heard her voice, amplified but steady. "Hold your positions." She stepped into the arena. Not toward the creature, toward me. The predator slowed, confused by the lack of fleeing prey. She stopped a few paces ahead of me, posture tall, utterly unafraid, or at least better at hiding it. "Look at me," she said quietly. "I am looking at our impending doom. Look at me." I did. "You are afraid," she said. Profoundly. "Good. Fear sharpens perception. Tell me what you see." The question cut through the panic just enough for my brain to stutter back online. The creature paced, head jerking slightly. Light flashed across its plated hide whenever it passed the metallic pillars. Flash. Pause. Flinch. It wasn't charging anymore. It was hesitating. "It doesn't like the reflections," I breathed. "Then use them." "Use them." "Right. Because obviously the cargo pilot who once lost a fight with packaging tape should outthink a tank with teeth. But fear does strange things. Once you accept you're terrified, you stop wasting energy pretending otherwise. I grabbed the emergency foil blanket from the fallen supply pack, thin, crinkling, absurd, and staggered toward one of the pillars. The creature advanced. My hands shook so badly the foil rattled like thunder. "Hey!" I shouted, mostly because screaming seemed on brand now. It lunged. I snapped the blanket wide. Light exploded across its vision, fractured, blinding. It recoiled with a furious bellow. "More!" she called. Colony staff, catching on, angled other reflective panels. The arena filled with chaotic bursts of brightness. The predator backed away. Then turned. Then bolted for the tunnel. For several seconds, nobody moved. Then the arena erupted, not in the hysterical worship I'd heard before, but something deeper. Shock giving way to understanding. I collapsed onto the dust, laughing in that slightly unhinged way people do when they realize they are still alive. She approached slowly. "You ran," she observed. "I ran very fast." "You screamed." "I stand by the scream." "And yet," she said, offering me her hand, "you remained. You observed. You adapted." I let her pull me upright. "I was not fearless," I said. "No," she agreed softly. "You were brave." The council conferred in rapid murmurs before the eldest lifted his voice once more. Strength takes many forms. The human stays. No grand title this time. No myth. Just acceptance. She looked at me then with an expression warmer than any admiration the crowd had ever offered. I preferred you before the legend, she admitted. Good, I said. Because the legend nearly passed out. Her laughter rang clear across the arena, and for the first time since arriving, the sound didn't feel like surprise. It felt like the beginning of something. The colony felt different the next morning. Not quieter, if anything, it buzzed with more activity, but the tone had shifted. People didn't bow when I passed anymore. They waved. Some asked questions. One group of adolescents followed me at a respectful distance, whispering furiously while trying to imitate my scream from the arena. I pretended not to hear it. Mostly. They started asking about things that had nothing to do with combat. Why humans drank bitter liquids in the morning. Why we laughed when we were nervous. Why we told stories where the heroes failed and kept going anyway. I answered honestly. It felt safer now. She joined me during the midday rest cycle, settling beside me on the terrace overlooking the lower gardens. No guards. No attendants. Just the two of us and the warm hum of the living stone beneath our feet. You have destabilized several long-standing assumptions, she said. On Earth, that's usually a fireable offense. Her skin shifted in gentle waves of color that I was beginning to recognize as amusement. The council is adapting. Slowly. So am I admitted. I stopped flinching when things skitter. As if summoned by my hubris, a familiar six-legged shape scurried out from beneath a planter. The tiny razorhound paused, tilted its head, and made a curious churring sound. I screamed. It was shorter this time. Higher pitched. Still extremely sincere. The creature bounded away, offended. She laughed openly now, no restraint, no self-consciousness. The sound was bright and contagious, and I found myself laughing too, even as my heart tried to claw its way out of my chest. I am pleased, she said, that your bravery remains inconsistent. Consistency is overrated. We sat in companionable silence for a while, watching the garden sway. I realized, with a jolt, that I wasn't counting the days anymore. I wasn't measuring time by assignment duration or extraction windows. I was just here. There is something I must ask you, she said eventually. My stomach tightened. If this is about more trials, I've reached my lifetime limit. It is about choice, she replied. Yours. She turned to face me fully, posture composed but eyes searching. You were assigned to us, she said. You have fulfilled that obligation. Earth would not object to your departure. The words hit harder than I expected. And? I managed. And I would, she said simply. The air between us felt charged, not with expectation, but with honesty. Adult honesty. The kind that doesn't rush or dramatize itself. I have carried this colony alone for a long time, she continued. I do not wish to do so forever. Not as a symbol. Not as a function. You want a partner, I said quietly. I want a person. I swallowed. My instinct was to deflect, to joke, to hide behind self-deprecation. But the arena had burned something out of me. I'm not strong like they thought, I said. I'm not fearless. I don't belong in legends. She reached out, her hand warm and steady against mine. Neither do I. That did it. That cracked something open. I don't know how this is supposed to work, I admitted. Different worlds. Different expectations. An entire species watching. Let them watch, she said. They have seen myths. Now they can see truth. We leaned closer, not rushed, not hesitant. When our foreheads touched, it felt less like a grand moment and more like coming home after a very long, very strange trip. Later, as the colony settled into its evening rhythms, a council message chimed across the terraces. The human donor status had been formally revised. I was no longer assigned. I was resident. Chosen. I stared at the notification for a long time before laughing softly. Well, I said, guess I live here now. She smiled, that familiar, knowing curve of expression. You scream less than expected for a permanent resident. Give me time. As the lights dimmed and the stars emerged overhead, I thought about the story they would tell in the future. Not of a fearless warrior who conquered beasts, but of a frightened human who stayed, who adapted, who bonded. They had thought humans were apex predators, forged without fear. The truth was simpler, and somehow stronger. We were pack creatures. And against all odds, this strange, luminous colony had become my pack.